Kentucky Derby.
Move around the turn. The leader, War Admiral, 2.5 for 3.
That's what it is in the center of the racetrack. The Admiral Sloop drawing alongside again.
War Emblem is still there. War Emblem, he's pulling away. He's got another gear. Yeah, the Swiss they come in the Derby. Wheel away takes command. Lionheart is all heart. Smarty Jones is all out. And here is the first undefeated winner of the Kentucky Derby since Seattle Slow of 1976.
Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby are right in front of us, but we've reached the end of the line here on the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show, final episode brought to you by Twin Spires. We are right on top of the Oaks and Derby, and we'll give our final thoughts on the contenders in both races during the course of the show. Temperature in the upper 60s, nearing 70. Main track is fast for today's program. All right, let's take a look at the headlines. Not a lot going on. All quiet on the Oaks and Derby front for the most part, and it's been that way most of this prep season leading up to the draw and through it, except for one horse, the Connections of Baeza. They're hoping that we get a late defection out of the Kentucky Derby, which will need to happen by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. That is scratch time for both the Oaks and the Derby. Potentially lucrative Oaks and Derby special wagers on the menu. They have been paying huge. We'll take a look at some of those two-day wagers at the end of the show. And we've got live racing here on Thurby at Churchill Downs. A trio of stakes races headline the 12-race program. Joe Christopher and James Scully, and James outside of the defection of Tapan Street after a workout last weekend. It's been very quiet when it comes to the Oaks and Derby horses. We like it that way. Everybody does, except for the Connections of Baeza.
Yeah, we don't want to see any horse come out for a reason, but yeah, it seems like it would be a shame if Baeza didn't draw in. He's running out of time to get in the field, but it's been a pleasure to watch these horses train over the last 3 days on the work show, and I'm excited to give our picks at the end of the show.
All right, looking forward to that as well. And it has become tradition to bring Rosie Napravnik back for the final show after getting her observations last weekend. Rosie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. It's so good to be here on our last show of this year's Derby and Oaks Works. I'm up here on the 4th floor, my favorite seat in the house. The weather is beautiful. It's pretty warm, but there's a nice cool breeze. The track looks beautiful, so we're going to hope to see some of these Derby and Oaks contenders out here on the track this morning, but we'll also be recapping on some of our favorite works. And there was a lot to see. Such a great Derby. I think out of the 5 years I've been doing the show, I think this is my favorite Derby. It's wide open. There's a lot of good horses that are looking really great, and I'm just excited to get things going tomorrow. We're going to throw it to Caitlin on the backside and see what she's got for us today.
Well, good morning, Rosie, and thank you. And I think I would probably have to agree with you as far as wide openness with some of these contenders. It's been one of my favorite times back here on the backside, that's for sure, especially after having to do a little bit of an abbreviated show last season. It was great to get back here on the backside and do these interviews, see these horses up close and personal, and a lot of the heavy lifting is done. Just going to be a couple more routine gallops for these horses. We'll see today how many Oaks horses we see. I saw Lacara go behind me a little bit earlier. We see how many come out for that designated training time, 7:15 to 7:30. We'll probably see more Derby than Oaks horses on the track this morning with a lot of those preparations done and complete. It's just about keeping these horses happy at this point.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. James and I are happy up on the set because we're getting closer and closer to the big races we've been looking forward to for several months now. Let's take a look at the field for the Kentucky Derby. And again, James, you know, the big storyline is all the speed drawn to the inside, including the two Bob Baffert trainees. Citizen Bull on the rail. I think he has to go with the blinkers on, and Martin Garcia, but other speed drawn just to his immediate outside.
Yeah, four of the six inside horses are speed. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Citizen Rodriguez, and then 12 East Avenue, number 20, Owen Almighty could add more to the pace.
No doubt about it. Some of the deeper closers drawn outside. Sandman Sovereignty, chief amongst those. And there he is on the outside looking in, number 21, Baeza needs a defection by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning out of the field in order to draw in. All right, lots of first-time Kentucky Derby and Oaks participants this year. Standing by with one of those is Caitlin Freed.
Well, thank you, Joe. Pleased to be joined here by jockey Joe Ramos, going to be breaking his maiden in this year's Kentucky Derby. Very, very exciting. But to say that the journey here has been easy would certainly be an understatement. You were in a motorcycle accident at the beginning of last year. There was a chance that you wouldn't even live, let alone ride again. How have you been able to get back after that? And did you really think that you would be able to come back and ride again?
Well, thanks, Kaylin, for having me here. At the beginning, I didn't thought that I was able to ride because it was a pretty bad accident. But my family gave me the support I need, and God gave me an opportunity. And I just started working since I came back, and here's the result.
Fast forward to now, you're in the best form of your career, riding in your first Kentucky Derby coming up in 2 days. How were you able to take your career to the next level following something like that?
I mean, it's just putting a lot of work, a lot of hours into this sport, and the support of WID that is being like helping me for a long time, you know, and just working, you know, getting into the horses every single day, getting out here, watch the people, and just working.
You're going to be on board Flying Mohawk in this year's Kentucky Derby. His co-owner, Jason Worth, is a big fan of yours. Said you have a lot of charisma and you give him chills. As a rider, you're one of 5 jockeys going to be riding in the Derby for the first time. And knowing you, I bet you're the least nervous of all 5 of them.
Yes, I think I'm ready. I was not waiting for this career, but I was ready for going to the next level, ride these kind of horses and compete with the good riders. But here I am, and I'm going to make it happen. I'm ready.
Here you are. I had no doubt that you wouldn't be nervous at all about this coming up. Flying Mohawk has been written off by a few people as maybe just a turf horse or a horse that's only going to excel over a wet racetrack. Why is that not true?
You can see him working out there on the main track, and he looks just like any other of these horses to me. He looked beautiful. I got the opportunity to work in. First time they working after the Jeff Ruby, and I think he just loved this track. He loved it here.
Did it give you an extra level of confidence with Honor Marie winning yesterday too?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think Whit would probably agree with that. Well, congratulations, Joe, and we're super proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Joe Ramos joining me here on the backside. Just a little over 48 hours until he rides in his first Kentucky Derby.
Well, thank you, Caitlin. The only time Joe Ramos rode this horse was in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, finishing second. Flying Mohawk, it hasn't really been talked about, taking blinkers off for this year's running of the Kentucky Derby. And speaking of the Derby, here's the favorite, journalism, who really needs no introduction, James.
No, he doesn't. And we had Michael McCarthy on the show yesterday. I love what he said. No wasted motion, covers a lot of ground, and he's just settled in perfectly at Churchill Downs, a deserving Kentucky Derby favorite.
Now, the deserving Kentucky Derby favorite, and we did see a run of Kentucky Derby favorites win after the point system was instituted, but not recently. James, Mystic Dan, Mage, Rich Strike, Medina Spirit disqualified for Mandaloon, Authentic, Wire to Wire in the September Derby, Country House disqualified, Maximum Security, Country House put up. He's the favorite. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to win on Kentucky Derby Day. That's one race, could be the best horse of the generation. Certainly looks the part here.
He really does. You know, he's a little bit of a stretch closer, so it'll be interesting to see his positioning and where he is when they enter the far turn. But yeah, he's all racehorse, and he's got a great chance.
Should be in the stalking queue, overcame adversity despite a short field to win the Santa Anita Derby last out, and just gliding over the racetrack. He has been the picture of professionalism here at Churchill Downs since arriving for trainer Mike McCarthy, looking for his first win in the Kentucky Derby. Jockey Umberto Rispoli will be at the controls. All right, from one very good-looking, imposing-looking individual to another, a sovereignty, the runner-up in the Florida Derby after winning the Fountain of Youth in his start prior. And this is a horse that got a little bit washy a couple of days last week. He has improved day by day by day by day to, basically not even it being a concern based on what we've seen in the mornings as we sent it to Rosie Napravnik, and tough to not like what you see with this horse, Rosie.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, to set this horse and journalism apart on the racetrack is tough, but this is the one that really catches my eye. He's super into his gallops, his breezes. He's always got his ears pricked and wanting to go, yet nicely rated by his rider in the morning. He's gotten a little hot on a few occasions, but, as as Caitlin got to talk to Junior, if Junior's not worried about it, then I'm not worried about it. To me, this is a really class horse. I love his running style. He just looks fabulous out here on the track. He wants to go. He's very professional. He's a big, strong-looking horse. I love his stride. He's just moving so fluidly out here, which is really like one of the things that you want to pick out is like who is moving the most fluid, who is, looking like their body is feeling the best coming into the Derby. It takes so much to get here, then the horses put so much in, and they're, running against really tough horses leading up. You want to see like who is in their best condition to peak at the right time, and I really think that that's the case for Sovereignty. I got to talk to Bill Mott. He said that the breeze was everything he was looking for, not looking for a ton of gallop out, yet the horse still galloped out really incredible. So I've just loved the way this horse has looked in the morning.
Will Sandman enter the winner's circle for Kentucky Derby 151? James Scully, I got a feeling that maybe you think so.
Yeah, I think he's moving forward at the right time for Mark Casse. I thought he was a 2-year-old that wasn't professional enough to be a stakes performer. Really had trouble trips, I thought, in the Southwestern Rebel. Took a big step forward with Jose Ortiz picking up the Mountain Arkansas Derby, and I think he's ready for another progression on Saturday.
His work schedule's been a little bit different than the vast majority of the Kentucky Derby horses as we bring Caitlin Free back in. And Caitlin, I know you had an opportunity to see this horse school in the paddock yesterday.
Yeah, I did. He's a horse that to me has always been interesting. He is kind of one of your prototypical tappets that can sometimes get a little funny. That's just how they are. He is a beautiful mover. He is so light on his feet. But when he was in the paddock schooling, he was fine when some of the other horses are in there. But when horses went out onto the track and it was just kind of the people, the music started playing, he got a little bit upset. I'm not really sure what went on with him, but he was bucking and kicking, jumping around, tossing his head, and eventually they were able to get him settled down when they took him back into one of the saddling stalls. He was kind of in a quiet place and they sprayed him off. He settled down, made a couple more laps, but just something that I thought maybe, I was potentially on the right track with this horse, being a little iffy about all the pomp and circumstance that comes with a Kentucky Derby. He would be the one, I think, out of the 20 heading into this race that I would maybe be the most concerned about.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. Let's take a look at a horse that's flying under the radar. That is Grande for Todd Pletcher. He did not have a published breeze at Churchill, just one breeze since the runner-up performance in the Wood Memorial, and that came at Keeneland. Mike Rapoli, Todd Pletcher as much as they can, James, flying under the radar with this horse.
Yes, they are. And this is a horse who exits a runner-up in the Wood Memorial Stakes. That was his stakes debut. He had a wide trip, and the winner had everything his own way on the front end. So, yeah, he's coming into the Derby. One thing about it, this race has 6 or 7 speed horses, 7 or 8 deep closers. Grande's got that right off the pace run style. Could be in a good spot during the opening stages of the Derby.
Let's switch gears to one of the 2 horses in the Derby this year, trained by Bob Baffert. Mike Smith, the Hall of Famer, riding Rodriguez. He took the blinkers off and went gate to wire in the Wood Memorial last out. He's trained well in between starts, and he's got speed much like his stablemate. As we throw it to Rosie to take a look at this horse, talk about horses that have made good impressions. This horse is a smooth mover. It's going to be very interesting to see what Mike Smith does into the first turn with the stablemate on the inside, Citizen Bull, also possessing speed from the rail, Rosie.
Yeah, this is another horse that I really loved out here, and I almost think Rodriguez is flying under the radar a little bit. He hasn't been talked about as much as I feel like he should be. He's one of my favorites. I think he's got a great post position. He's got speed. He doesn't have to be on the lead at all. And I think Bob really likes this horse going into the Derby. His works also have been super professional. I love the way he looks out on the track. He's striding out really nicely, out here being professional, had his ears flicking in his breeze. Nothing not to like about Rodriguez. And, I really like the Wood Memorial more than usual in the, leading up to the Derby. It was one of my favorite prep races. So I've been giving this horse a lot of credit, and he's giving me no reason to doubt him on the racetrack here this morning, or all week, I should say.
All right, thank you, Rosie. From one speed factor to another, Neo Equos, who James does not have a Sen-type rider, and Flavian Pratt aboard. but he's been forward in all of his races coming out of that third place performance in the Florida Derby, where he threatened in the stretch and then couldn't keep up with the Pan Street and Sovereignty, two of the better horses, in this crop.
Yeah, Neoquist is a horse who just stretched out the 2 turns, 2 starts back in the Fountain of Youth. He showed high speed, setting the pace that day. I thought he was ridden patiently in the Florida Derby. They didn't really want to be out there seemingly on the lead. They wanted to sit close. It didn't work out. I expect him to be hustling because it basically post 2 takes away the option for Flavien Prat to sit close.
Flavien Prat named to ride by Aza, but if that horse doesn't get in, he will be aboard Neo Equos for trainer Safi Joseph Jr. We caught up with him yesterday morning.
He's doing well. Distance for him is a bit of a concern, whereas early on we're pretty confident that she stays the trip well. He has speed to put himself in a good spot, so we hope he breaks well from there, and then the main bunch of speed goes, and if he can just follow them into the race, and he needs to run the race of his life. We threw more things at him, harder races. He's kept running better and better, and that's the reason why we give him a chance, because he hasn't regressed. We feel like he keeps improving, and like he deserves a chance in that aspect. He's done as good as ever, in our opinion. And like same thing with galloping. He's very relaxed. That's why we give him a chance at the distance, because we feel like he has a composition of a mind to relax and do whatever the right to ask him.
Interesting what Safi Joseph Jr. said there about, this not being a send mission for Neo Equos, maybe sitting in behind the other horses that are expected to go. So we'll see how that plays out in and out of the first turn. We'll see how your wagers play out, not only on Kentucky Derby and Oaks Day, but also today Thurby, and take advantage of this money back offer courtesy of Twin Spires, which did begin on opening night and does end on Kentucky Derby Saturday with all eligible races. If you bet a horse to win and they run second or third, we will give you up to $10 back, but you have to play on Twin Spires and you have to opt in. This and many other great promotions available on a regular basis.
Yeah, we've all had those days where we have a case of second-itis, Joe.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's some insurance on your win wagers. And again, the buzz continues to build on the backstretch here at Churchill Downs. And one of the horses that's gotten a lot of buzz, one of the best stories in the Kentucky Derby this year, is Cole Battle. We're going to ride along with him when we return here on the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show presented by Twin Spires. Cole Battle coming up next.
Just by choosing a name that catches your eye. No matter how you pick your horse, bet with Twin Spires. Get your money back if your horse finishes second or third in eligible races.
Like the Kentucky Derby, Woodford Reserve Bourbon is a spectacle for the senses.
We are back on the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show presented by Twin Spires. You can see the renovation happening here for the designated workout time, which will happen about 12 minutes from now for the Oaks and Derby contenders. No major lifting, just gallops leading into tomorrow's Oaks and Saturday's Kentucky Derby. Joe Christopher and James Scully joining you at the set. And James, the vast majority of the horses in this year's Kentucky Derby, no surprise, Kentucky breds.
Absolutely. Horse capital of the world, Central Kentucky, just tons of great stud farms. 19 of the 21 entrants in the Kentucky Derby this year were bred in Kentucky. Neoquist is the lone Florida bred, and Admire Daytona was bred in Japan. So one international, one Florida bred, and 19 Kentucky breds.
Participants from all over the world as far as the owners, trainers, and jockeys go. One of those is Jose Ortiz. We've been following along his path to the Derby that began way back in September. Final episode of the YouTube series, Jose Ortiz's Journey to the Derby, was released this morning.
There's a lot of superstition in horse racing. You don't want to disrupt what works.
Sandman does it for Mark Cassidy and Jose Ortiz.
Seaman's always kind of been Jose's horse. You work your entire life, this is what you want to achieve.
When you win with a horse, you stick with that horse.
Well, yeah, I have thoughts. Sometimes I'm driving and see myself winning the Derby, but that's just dreams.
The Kentucky Derby is the hardest race to win for any trainer, any jockey, no matter how good you are at your profession. Is this the year for Jose Ortiz? We've been riding along with his journey during the course of this YouTube series, and the finale has been released this morning. Make sure you check out episode 7 and all the other episodes if you haven't checked it out as of yet. A great series put on by our Churchill Downs television department. We've been riding along with Jose Ortiz. We've been riding along with him on his journey to the Kentucky Derby. Let's ride along with Cole Battle on the racetrack here. Just a great view as you see Bethany Taylor aboard. And we're going to send it to Rosie. Rosie, let's talk through this because you've had this view none of the rest of us really have on a racehorse. Talk about the rider's hands here and what you're seeing with Cole Battle.
Yeah, Bethany Taylor's been doing such a great job with this horse. I used to ride races with Bethany, but you can see he is tugging on her in this particular gallop. And when she had her hands separated there, she was kind of using like a back and forth between the right rein and the left rein. You can see when he puts his head up there, they're going to head down toward the rail. And she's just really trying to rate him here and keep him from doing too much here. Now she's got her hands together and she's letting him run a little bit. You can see he's got his ears pricked, head up. That's a sign of just doing it so easily. And we'll see when they come into the rein. You can see it as his neck starts to move faster is when he's really getting into his breeze. And she's letting him run here. You can see her hands are a little bit further up his neck to give him a little bit more room to extend. But really not asking for much, just sort of letting him run. If she had been asking him, you'd see her arms flattening out. And as they come a little bit further and under the wire, and then you can see she stood up and just allows him to gallop out, not really asking him for much. Her reins get longer, her hands come down a little bit further toward the saddle to just let him gallop out here.
All right, thank you, Rosie. Lonnie Briley and Cole Battle, one of the better stories in this year's Kentucky Derby. But another good story is Burnham Square and trainer Ian Wilkes, and of course the jockey who won last year's Kentucky Derby, Brian Hernandez Jr. And last year, James, he was able to map out a great trip for Mystic Dan. Inside draw, tactical speed, covered up trip, got the jump, held on. He's going to try to strategize with Burnham Square, but the strategy with this one maybe not as cut and dry.
No, it's not, because I didn't think Burnham Square particularly liked being inside in the Fountain of Youth. He was kept wide the entire way in the Bluegrass by Brian Hernandez. But no doubt about it, look at him train there, Joe, making a great impression, I think.
I'm going to go to Rosie here. Is what you're seeing positive or negative? Because there's been a lot of debate on X that I've seen, the neck bowed versus the energy that he has and how he's going to use that energy come Saturday, Rosie.
Yeah, it's kind of an unusual style for a horse to gallop like this. With his chin, this is really a very extreme case of, bringing his chin to his chest. And as a rider, there's just nowhere else to pull. You can see, I would say that the chin to the chest and the way that he's positioning his neck is just him being aggressive and the place that he's trying to go to get, away from his rider on the reins. So he's, this is his way of sort of like evading the rein and saying, I want to go faster. So, it's great to see that he's so into his gallops, and this rider seems like he gets along with him really well. This is definitely a ride where you got to kind of finesse it a little bit, and he's not doing too much. So although, he's feeling aggressive mentally, the rider is able to contain him and just keep it at a gallop, even though I'm sure Burnham Square would like to go to the rail here.
Yeah, I love that explanation. Thanks for that, Rosie. And it's a horse that has really grown on me over the course of the last couple of weeks here at Churchill Downs. I would love to see Ian Wilkes win it and love to see Brian Hernandez Jr. win it again. Brian not only won the Derby last year, he won the Kentucky Oaks. He's got a mount in this race as well. And Take Charge Milady. He's been battling a little bit of a hoof issue, a quarter crack, and we'll see if she makes it into the starting gate. Right now it looks like she will, and all systems go for Kenny McPeak, James.
Yes, Brian Hernandez became only the 8th jockey in history to win both the Oaks and the Derby in the same year. And I think Take Charge My Lady, with all the speed in the Oaks, she's a late runner. Burnham Square, all the speed in the Derby, he's a late runner. Brian Hernandez is going to try to repeat in both races from off the pace.
Take a look at the speed in the race. Lacara amongst those, Simply Joking drawn on the inside. With the rail position, we'll see if Lacara is faster into the first turn. 5G's got speed, and as promised, got a pressing style as well, James.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think Simply Joking has the potential for a position, but they may not want to go that fast early.
Take a look at the Ashland, where Lacara did go gate to wire. Short stretch race here, James, certainly didn't hurt her as Take Charge My Lady comes running at her late.
Yeah, she seems to be absolutely thriving off of this win for Mark Cassey. Is trained great here at Churchill. Lacara, my only concern is in her 3 wins, she had everything her own way on the lead. When she doesn't get that trip, she hasn't won a race.
Now, I could have put Quiet Side in the early forward horse column, but decided to put her at the top of the stalking queue because from post position number 14, James, I think if she breaks well, she could sit the trip right in behind that speed, and that could potentially work to her advantage.
Yeah, but she was within a half length of the lead for at every call in the fantasy and this race before that. And I'm a little bit worried if she's dropping further off the pace, if she'll run as well.
We'll see how it plays out in and out of that first turn. Key from the extreme outside post. These 2 horses, James, just really threw it down. Simply Joking on the inside, and on the outside, Quiet Side just a little bit better late.
Yeah, and she's been flattered by the competition. 5G came right back and won the Gulfstream Parks Oaks. Simply Joking, she's a top contender in the Oaks as well.
We're going to bring Caitlin in for this one. Kentucky Oaks running styles from off the pace. I know Megan Burgess has been high on Ballerina d'Oro. Me, not quite so much. I think she's going to come from far, far, far off the pace. Take Charge My Lady. She's a stalker / late runner. You see the rest of them on here. Drexel Hill, Bless the Broken Horses that might be able to get a slice at a price. But Caitlin, let's talk about Ballerina d'Oro and Chad Brown. Here she is winning her most recent start, the Gazelle. And I'm just not a real big fan of this race and not a real big fan of the way she's traveling here in the stretch.
Yeah, I remember watching this race live, Joe, and she worked pretty hard to get past the foe on her inside. I think maybe she needs a little bit more to launch at. She really didn't have a lot of cover throughout that race. It wasn't a very big field, and I think she had a little bit of greenness, kind of got lost a little bit there. I just don't think she's fast enough to win a race like the Kentucky Oaks yet. I think she's maybe a summer
Move
type
over
of a
to
filly.
5G, another horse that is expected to be part of the early pace. Taking a look at her here, and she's improved all along during the course of this run up to the Kentucky Oaks. She's been right there in the stretch in the vast majority of her races. 5G for trainer George Weaver, second beaten a length in the Honeybee, the winner of the Gulfstream Park Oaks, last out gate to wire, and coming into the race the right way. But what kind of trip is she going to get with speed drawn to her inside, and how is she doing coming into the race? We caught up with George Weaver.
She's trained very well since the Oaks and the Gulfstream Park Oaks, and we think she likes the track here. She's galloped very well over it, and she's doing well. We went to Oaklawn and ran in the Honeybee, and that was a big field, so she's, it's going to be similar to the Oaks in that part. But she's all racehorse, and she's just gotten better and better. She knows her job. She knows what to do, and I feel like she has the seasoning to get the job done. I don't think she has any distance limitations, to be honest with you. And, there's a lot of pace in the race. We'll see how things sort out going in the first turn, but I'm not concerned about the mile and 8th at all.
Earlier, we saw Ballerina d'Oro winning the Gazelle, the horse she beat right on the wire. There was early on, who also had a tough beat in the Virginia Oaks in her start previous to that. This is a horse that ran at an optional $50,000 maiden claimer at Aqueduct back in December. Early on from the rails, she might get a pocket trip going a mile and an 8th, but the question with her is, the race is she's exiting, and is she good enough? We caught up with trainer Saffie Joseph Jr. for more on early on.
She's a lot more keen in her gallops now, showing good energy, and we're happy with how she is. She did show more speed than we expected, and we hope she can show that kind of speed to put herself in a better spot, because normally she's too far behind. Anytime you can lay a little closer in the race, it's going to help you. Before she used to lay almost last, so we don't, obviously she's not going to be on the lead in this case, but if she could lay 5th, 6th, 7th right around there and not have enough not have as much to do, she has a better chance. She's a filly that's improving. She's improving on all the figures and the rags and the byres, and she's improving most importantly visually. And we feel like she sits on a big effort. She's a good outsider.
Switch gears from a horse that should be in a stalking queue to a horse that's probably going to be a little bit further out the back and Bless the Broken. Second in the Silver Bullet Day behind Simply Joking. A distant third in a 4-horse field in the Grade 2 Rachel Alexander. Had her coming out party in the Bourbonnais Oaks as we send it back to Caitlin. You cover the races at Turfway all winter, and she looked good winning that race, but again, against the better horses in the division, maybe has a little bit more that she needs to show.
I love her chances in the Oaks, actually, especially if we get an off track, which seems like it could be possible. Will Walden highly elevates her over a wet racetrack, says that's probably her best type of a surface, and she does have to improve a little bit, but she's headed in that direction. Her best surface is dirt. She's looked impressive ever since she's got here, so I really do like the chances for Bless the Broken.
All right, we're getting closer and closer to the designated training time. Again, lots of buzz on the backstretch here, and going to see a lot of the Derby and Oaks horses on the racetrack here. Just galloping, jogging. All the major preparations have been complete. Here's a horse on the outside of the racetrack looking in, also on the outside of the Derby field looking in. It's Baeza. We'll be right back.
As they head to the backstretch, it's a tight pack.
He's going to pull ahead. The Twin Spires expert picks were all optimistic.
You've got the best speeder rating in the field. Don't fail me now.
Man, I love this horse's name.
And from far behind, here comes Frank. It's neck and neck. Frank is winning. Frank wins!
Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with Twin Spires, the official betting partner of the Kentucky Derby. Get your money back if your horse finishes second or third in eligible races.
We are back on the Kentucky Derby morning workout show. There you see Bob Baffin. We've got a couple of horses in this year's Kentucky Derby. We've got the Citizen Bull and Rodriguez, and hopefully we'll see both of them on the racetrack here today. There you see Barbara Livingston right in the mix, as always, getting her photos. An exciting time of year. Whether you're a reporter, a photographer, a fan, the buzz is continuing to grow with all the radio stations and the TV stations on the backstretch here at Churchill Downs. It is Thurby, Kentucky Oaks Day coming up tomorrow, and Kentucky Derby Day coming up on Saturday. And there's the coach, Dwayne Lucas. American Promise is his hopeful in this year's Kentucky Derby, James, and another horse that is most likely expected to go forward.
Yeah, he didn't get out of gate very well in his first 2 stakes attempts this year, but broke much better in the Virginia Derby, and you got to figure he's going to be hustling. He's a really good-looking horse, Joe. Don't know, he might be a race short in a sense, and, definitely going to be tested for class, but good horse to look at.
Caitlin, you caught up with Joe Ramos earlier with Beckman winning the Isaac Murphy Marathon Stakes yesterday with Kentucky Derby alum Anna Marie. Here is Flying Mohawk taking the blinkers off, and it's interesting, he's had most of his races on turf, some synthetic mixed in, but as Joe said, he's trained well on the dirt. This is one of those horses that I would not argue with anyone that wanted to use underneath.
I absolutely agree. The price is going to be right, but I think maybe he's had enough buzz. Travis Stone was one that was talking about him also as potentially an underneath type of a horse at a seminar that we were at together. I think he's one that's going to surprise some people in this race. Doesn't necessarily need an off track, doesn't necessarily need turf or synthetic. He held his own and got the better of Anna Marie, so very impressive. But there's a look at Citizen Bull with the crowd in the background, and Bob and the coach Dwayne Lucas have been out here showing their horses off to the crowd, and no doubt they're living for this moment.
Citizen Bull, Rosie, aptly named. He's like a stick of dynamite out there as he moves his way closer and closer to the racetrack for his training here this morning. Was so good as a 2-year-old, the champion, the winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, started his year off right in the Lewis, and then a tired 4th in the Santa Anita Derby. But from the rail, you would think that he's got to go.
100% got to go. And the one thing that I can point out about him on the track this week is that I just don't envy his rider. He looks like he is a bull to ride. He looks so tough. But I think, yeah, with the blinkers on coming from the one hole, I mean, there is no other option for you as a rider. I mean, just in a sense of, you know, keeping yourself in the best position possible no matter what. Even if you're not trying to go to the lead, you're going to send like crazy out of the one hole. I can say that from experience, being on a tiny little horse coming out of the one hole back in 2014, and Vickers in trouble. But I think Citizen Bull will have a much easier path than I did, and he's got all the speed. Here's Sandman, who is another horse that has been catching eyes on the track, just walking on here. Definitely one of the horses I'll be looking at as well.
Sandman, the journey to the Derby for Jose Ortiz started with him and ends with him. He'll be aboard for Mark Casse here. James, great story with Lothenbach Stables, the breeder. Bob Lothenbach passing away within the last year or so, and it was always his dream to get a horse in the Derby. They sold this horse for $1.2 million, so he at least has a horse that he bred in the Kentucky Derby and one of the major contenders, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jose Ortiz picked up the mount in the Arkansas Derby. I thought he gave him a really good ride that day. I think it's an edge to have a hot jockey like Jose. And, you know, Sandman is a horse that, to me, wasn't ready for stakes action as a 2-year-old. He's coming on right now. And, yeah, he's going to bring a big late kick to the stretch run.
Jose Ortiz was aboard in the career debut way back in June at Churchill, 5th as the even money favorite sprinting, 5th in the Iroquois, beaten 10 lengths by Jonathan's Way, 3rd in the Street Sense behind Sovereignty and Tistastic. James, that Street Sense has turned out to be a key race. Sovereignty, Tistastic, Sandman.
Yeah, I mean, what a grouping there. And Sandman's by Tappet. I think both Tappet and Kerwin are the two sires you could point to that would deserve a Kentucky Derby winner.
We haven't seen a ton, Rosie, of Grande, and there he is, aptly named again, Grande. Large, and will he be in charge? That's the question. He's progressive. I can't seem to get it out of my mind, though, that maybe this is more of a Belmont horse for Todd, who we know is always very prominent in that race.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way this horse is going forward in his last race. He's, you know, definitely not one of the most experienced horses in the field. I do think he's getting better. You just have to wonder if he's going to be good enough in a field of 20 horses with only 3 starts under his belt.
James, he should get the trip he wants based on his running style. I mean, he was so wide in the first turn and on the backstretch in the wood, still making up ground late into a, you know, modest pace up front set by Rodriguez. This is a horse that, you know, in this crop of horses, I think might be one of the best eventually. Is it too much too soon? That remains to be seen, but you can't help but be intrigued by him.
Absolutely, and he's got tactical ability. He showed it in his first 2 races, showed more versatility in the wood, rating in 7th early. That was a fast race, the second fastest wood in the last 20 years. Rosie mentioned she liked that race earlier, and both Rodriguez and Grande, I think, are going to be good prices on Saturday.
Most definitely. Todd Pletcher, he's had years where he's had 5 starters, 4 starters.
Yeah, 20 times he's had multiple starters in the Kentucky Derby. Todd Pletcher has 65 starts, 2 wins, 2 seconds, 4 thirds. He's run multiple horses 20 times. This is his second consecutive year he's only had 1, which has been sort of an anomaly for him.
No doubt about it. Always dreaming. Super Saver, the 2 Kentucky Derby winners for trainer Todd Pletcher, and Grande for Mike Rapoli. You know, it's one of those situations for Mike where he's flying in under the radar here. You know, he's been here in other circumstances, Fierceness last year, of course, most recently, where he's been the center of attention. Not quite so much this year, but maybe he gets the last laugh.
Yeah, you're right. This is a horse that looks the part. It's just going to be whether he has a seasoning. But Mike Rapoli, one of the most successful owners in the game nowadays.
Forte a couple of years ago had to be scratched right before the Derby, and way back when to Uncle Mo as well. So right. We'll see how this plays out with Grande, not only on the first Saturday of May, but throughout his career. Certainly looks like a horse that you want to pay attention to on Saturday and as the year moves forward, getting a gallop out there. And Rosie, that's what we're doing today here. We're just getting some gallops. I mean, we're just a couple of days away from the race. Just want to get these horses out of their stalls, get some exercise, and just continue to keep moving forward. There you see Grande on the racetrack there for Todd Pletcher. Derby and Oaks designated training time. See if we can bounce around to a few more of these here.
You know, Grande's by Curlwood, too. Curlwood sired a winner of the Preakness, winner of the Belmont, Breeders' Cup Classic winner, never had a Derby winner, but his son, Good Magic, sired Mage.
There you see Citizen Bull, a little bit more aggressive here than we just saw Grande. Oh, that's Rodriguez. That's what I thought. Okay, let's send it back to Rosie.
Yeah, this is one of the horses that I have been really keeping my eye on in his gallops and loved his breeze. And again, out here this morning, just professional, you know, well within himself. I love this horse. I think Bob really likes this horse in the Derby. I think he got a great pose. He's got the tactical speed, but, you know, just out here for a casual gallop. He'll probably go to the track again tomorrow, but you can see I love how he pricks his ears and then he kind of is back to his business, and you know, it's just a horse that's aware and yet super classy and professional.
Rosie, what does Bob tell Martin Garcia? What are the discussions Mike Smith with two horses that want to go forward? He wants to win the race. You know, I'd love to be a fly on the wall with those discussions. There's got to be a strategy, but you, like I said, have two horses with the same running style.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think, you know, Citizen Bull is by far the faster horse of the two with the speed. And, you know, I actually asked Bob a question relating to that. Like, you know, what do you do with two horses, you know, in the first four post positions in the Derby? And he's like, I can't even get involved with that. I'm going to leave it up to those guys, you know, and that's a you know, a trainer that has a great relationship with two different riders on two different good horses of his. But again, like, you know, and Martin Garcia, he's a speed, he can be a speed rider. So, I mean, I think all things considered, there's just absolutely no other scenario other than Citizen Bull is going to attempt to get to the lead.
Right, and Bob knows that, and there are discussions that go on. Bob's holding his cards maybe a little bit close to the vest there as we take a look at the Kentucky Derby favorite. He's the favorite in the early wagering, maybe not as bet down as we thought he would be, but again, millions of dollars still to go into the pool. Let's go back to Caitlin Free. It's just, you know, he's the buzz of the backstretch, Caitlin, for good reason. It's just a pleasure to watch this horse train in the mornings and race in the afternoons.
It is. This horse is the picture of fitness, the picture of professionalism. Mike McCarthy, when I interviewed him yesterday, talked about just how mentally fit this horse is, along with being physically fit. And that's what it takes to have a horse to win a race like the Kentucky Derby. You have to have a well-rounded candidate. And I think the most important thing about journalism when it comes to the races is he is one of the only horses in this field that has the ability to stop and start Umberto Rispoli if he needs to switch position, can shut this horse off and immediately turn him back on.
There is journalism. We've got some schoolers in the paddock here as well. This is the Steve Asmussen trained duo. This is Tistastic, a publisher I believe is in there as well. And James, similar yet different journeys to the Derby for these two. Tistastic, another horse that has not done his best work here at Churchill, but did his best work in his most recent start. How do you evaluate a horse like this?
Well, I will say this. He did place in both of those Churchill Downs stakes, dirt stakes last fall. I just think he's improved now. So I'm not too worried about his affinity for his track. I like his last effort a lot more than I like Publisher's runner-up effort in the Arkansas Derby.
Saw Publisher behind Tistastic finishing up their paddock schooling there. There you see
some sweat.
Grande, right? Coming off the racetrack. Yeah, just a moderate. Maybe go back to Rosie here. The weather out there, just a little. I mean, just a tinge there, Rosie. I don't think it's anything to even give a second thought to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the track is beautiful. I'm just Sovereignty came in front of me, and he's like one of my favorite horses I've been watching, and I just love his gallop every day. He's just well within himself. He's always got his ears pricked. He absolutely loves his job. He's super big and strong looking horse. They've just been coming like one after another here around on this this final day before the Oaks, and still this horse catches my eye, as he has every day.
Based on listening to Rosie, Caitlin, and you, James, talk, I got a prediction in my head as to who your top picks are going to be. We'll see if I'm right at the end of the show when we reveal our selections for the Oaks and Derby. But another horse that's tough to poke holes in. I mean, Bill Mott said he wasn't even ready for the Fountain of Youth when he won. A lot of people thought, hey, he's going to improve in the Florida Derby. He's going to win that too. He ran into Tapan Street, who might have been my top pick for the Kentucky Derby had he not scratched due to injury following a workout last weekend. You know, it's tough not to like this horse. How much you like him is another story.
You know, the turn of foot he showed on the far turn of the Street Sense, he was last going in the turn. He was challenging for the lead coming out of it. I love the way he put his body down in the stretch of the Fountain of Youth and the Florida Derby too, Joe.
Take a look at East Avenue. He's had an interesting road to the Derby. Broke his maiden by 8 at Ellis. Won the Breeders' Futurity for fun, was the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but stumbled at the start, never got into the race. The Risen Star, his comeback, his 3-year-old debut was an absolute debacle. Brendan Walsh put the blinkers on for the Bluegrass, and we saw a very, very, very game, as we send it back to Caitlin Free, very game individual that particular day, Caitlin, but the speed's drawn to his inside. He's drawn in post position number 12. Things could fall in his favor, but will he pass another horse?
That definitely is the big question. I would say of the horses that we predict are going to be pretty forward, East Avenue drew the best. The rest of them are kind of bunched up. Owen Almighty is drawn in post 20 in no man's land. So East Avenue is kind of there in the middle, and Manny Franco can kind of really decide what he wants to do. I don't think he's going to have horses to either side of him. They're going to be too close to him when they break out of the gate and really try to force the issue. So he drew the best out of those horses, but Brendan Walsh told me he kind of really needed to see something last time out in the Bluegrass out of East Avenue to make him progress in this direction, and he has. This horse has just always struck me with how good he looks. He looks fantastic coming into this race, no surprise.
Want to get a quick comment from Rosie too. It looks like he's got real nice controlled energy out on the racetrack there, Rosie.
Yeah, lovely, lovely gallop. And this horse is, I actually saw him in the barn the other day too. Like, he is a big, strapping, impressive horse. I did actually talk to Brendan Walsh as well, and he's not worried at all about him passing a horse. I still have to have my concern. As good as he looks out here on the racetrack, he's coming, you know, right from the middle of the pack, and he's going to have to get a really good position. But, you know, his form tells us we still have to keep a question mark on him.
I mean, of all the horses going in the starting gate, with his natural speed and being able to get away from there, with horses, quite honestly, James, that don't have a lot of speed drawn to his inside and outside, he should get a great run into the first turn. He should be in a good position in and out of that turn in the backstretch. We have our questions that remain, but man, you know, if I was involved with this horse, I would not, you know, be disappointed with that draw whatsoever. I think it's one of the better draws in the field.
I do too. He doesn't have to have any horses in front of him, even if he isn't showing the way from the outside. But I do think when he goes fast early, those have been his best races, and they're going to be committed to the front end.
All right, we've got Publisher and Tistastic. Again, the Steve Asmussen trained duo on the racetrack here. And Rosie, can you get a good look at the two here? You know, it's well documented about Steve. You know, he's been so relaxed this week. You know, when he had Epicenter, he was the favorite. You know, the pressure was on. He thought he was going to win that race, and we all know what happened with Rich Strike. Coming into it with two, you know, secondary contenders, but he seems to be high on both of them.
Yeah, and you know, they both look great out here galloping this morning. Publisher, of course, in front of Tistastic, and to be honest with you, the one that I gravitate toward watching them train is Publisher. And the other thing, you know, being a maiden in the field, the one thing about Steve is he wouldn't be running him if he didn't think he had a shot. I mean, I think that's a huge credit to what he thinks about the horse. Tistastic not doing anything wrong out here, but Publisher is really the one that catches my eye the most.
Yeah, he's handled this horse like a potential Derby horse all along. Didn't debut until August. We know Steve does so well in the spring with his precocious 2-year-olds, but he knows which ones could be potential Kentucky Derby horses moving forward. Here's a horse, James, that has really grown on me, Burnham Square for Ian Wilkes. And, you know, Ian said, you know, you look at him, he's not East Avenue, he's not Sovereignty, he's not journalism, but Ian said, you know what? I know he's a little bit smaller frame, but I got to train hard on this horse. This horse can take it. I can't get to the bottom of him. Very positive comments off of that Bluegrass win where he was absolutely relentless. Took a bunch of kickback in the face, was wide, had no business catching East Avenue and still did.
Yeah, and Wilkes talked about it. That was a hard race, and he had to train him hard, and I think he's responded favorably. Really, the addition of blinkers 4 starts back made all the difference for Burnham Square. He took his game to another level.
From the winner of the Bluegrass to the runner-up, we saw East Avenue moments ago, and there's lots of schooling that occurs here. We talked about and saw the paddock schooling, also the gate schooling, and this is him coming off the racetrack live. Let's take a look back at him schooling at the gate, and we'll send it back to Rosie Napravnik. And Rosie, we have the 20-horse starting gate now. It's a little bit more narrow than when we had the gate and the auxiliary gate, which has been a topic of discussion amongst people that are, close observers of the game. East Avenue is a little bit of a bigger horse. This is not the Kentucky Derby starting gate, but again, important. Some of these horses potentially, when they go in early, are going to stand in the gate a long time.
Yeah, I mean, they split the field to make it, as fair as possible. So you're not, the one horse isn't standing in there for 20 horses to load, but I was able to luck out and draw the 7-hole in my first Derby, and it was such a relief because it is a long time to stand in there for the 1 and the 11. And they try to get, and these guys are such experts behind the gate. They try to get them loaded as quickly as possible. If there's anybody that has a specific quirk about the starting gate, they know about it beforehand. They've dealt with it. They've schooled here in the morning. But it looks like East Avenue is just schooling quiet here, and you can see they just walk them in, they let them stand in there and just take a deep breath, and then they back them out the back and let them know, like, hey, there's nothing going on here, and we're just going to back out today. So nice and relaxed for this horse this morning, schooling at the gate and walking off the track here.
Here he is live. Real quick, Rosie, just to explain to the people out there how the gate loading process works. 111, 212. I mean, that's the progression of the gate load, correct?
Yes. So the 1 horse and the 11 horse will load first, and so that they'll load in pairs. So you do it 2 at a time to try to make it as quick as possible.
All right, there you see East Avenue. Very nice gallop for East Avenue here this morning, who, during his 2-year-old year, was the horse that a lot of people thought had maybe the brightest future. But there's a difference, James, for a lot of horses between ages 2 and 3. The beginning to his 3-year-old campaign didn't go according to plan, but maybe he's coming into the race the right way at this point.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. Brendan Walsh added blinkers to East Avenue before the Bluegrass. That was, I think, his best effort yet, so maybe that really made a difference for him mentally.
Burnham Square and Baeza both coming off. Baeza just a little bit of a neck sweat, but again, it's warm for an April day. It's in the low 70s out there. I don't think that's anything that we need to even think twice about. The big question is whether or not Baeza gets into the field. It can be frustrating, but again, James, the point system is the point system.
Yeah, and he ran second to Rodriguez in a January maiden race. If he had come back quicker and got a maiden win after that, he might have had time for 2 preps. He instead didn't come back for 6 or 7 weeks, broke his maiden in mid-February. That left John Charef's only time for 1 prep, so he might be a race short, Joe, coming into the Derby if he gets in.
He gets in. Mage, Dornock, already Kentucky Derby starters out of the damn Puka. Yep. We had another nice foal by the name of Gunning, who was talented in her own right, but just, the damn Puka has been absolutely incredible.
Daughter of Kentucky Derby winner Big Brown, and trying to become the first mare ever to have 3 consecutive starters in the Derby.
All right, there you see twinspires.com. That is the place to play all kinds of wagers, James, on Oaks and Derby Day. Let's start with the 2-day $1 pick 6. Average payout the last 2 years over $207,000. This is great, James, because you get 2 races on Friday. If you're alive after those 2 races, you got the 4 races on Saturday. It's a good feeling to be alive from Friday to Saturday, from Oaks to Derby Day in these 2-day wagers. We got a few of them.
Yeah, it is a good feeling because I've been there before.
Of course you have.
And have had it be disappointed. These races are so deep, there's lots of chances for value.
And again, if you have these multiple, race wagers that might be a little bit of expensive to play. You can get some friends involved, use the Twin Spires Bet Your option. This one is not expensive to play, James. It's the Oaks
Turf Classic
Derby 50-cent pick 3, and this one as well, the Oaks Derby double. This is a $1 minimum wager. The pick 3 is 50 cents. We talk about payoffs, $330 for a $1 wager on the Oaks Derby double. Everybody should play this.
Yeah, this is the original special wager for this weekend, and old-timers like me play it every year.
No doubt about it. Again, you get live with your Oaks winner to the Derby, always a lot of fun. On Saturday, 50 cent, all stakes, all dirt, pick 5. You see some of the races involved there, including the Pat Day Mile, and of course, James, the Kentucky Derby.
Look at that payout for 50 cents. I mean, there's going to be some upsets again this year.
And that's the last 3 years combined. That's the average payout, $92,600. You definitely want to get involved. And again, bet shares, you pool some money with some friends. These are potentially life-changing scores. Might as well take a swing. Kentucky Derby Day is the best day of the year to play the races in the Derby with a 20-horse field in particular. $3 all 3-year-old pick 3, James, the Pat Day Mile, the American Turf on the Grass, and the Kentucky Derby. A pick 3, and I know it's a $3 minimum. Average payout the last 3 years, $21,000 plus.
Yeah, I thought the American Turf came up real competitive as well, so it and the Derby, really tough races to decipher.
All right, that wraps it up for the specialty wagers. Lots of pick 5s, the Derby City 6 as well. What about the last couple of weeks here? We've seen lots of gallops, we've seen lots of workouts, both here and other venues across the country. Rosie Napravnik is the best person to take a look back at her favorite works from the Kentucky Derby morning workout show. Rosie, high anticipation on the set here to see what you got.
High anticipation, yeah, for the Oaks as well. And there were so many horses that just looked fantastic out here. My number 5 is going to be Take Charge, My Lady. Just a nice, sharp work. Sat off the workmate outside and galloped out really well without even being asked. Then it's going to be Simply Joking. This was an in-hand work and one that was on a wet track, so there's a chance that there could be some moisture on the track. She went solo with Florent Giroux aboard and 47-3, really good work. My next will be Ballerina d'Oro. Honestly, I was really impressed with this work. She was by herself. She stayed way off the rail. Huge gallop out for her in 48-3. My number 2 is going to be Drexel Hill, actually. I was super impressed with this work when she worked outside of Flying Mohawk. She actually almost looked superior to Flying Mohawk running in the Derby. But just a really commanding work, really caught my eye. And then my number 1 work is definitely gonna be Good Cheer. Another one of the favorites that is just not giving us any reason to dislike her, also worked on this track where there was some extra moisture on the track this past Saturday, and I think there's a chance that there'll be moisture on the track, so I loved to see that she got over the track on Saturday when it had rained, but just a really easy work to the wire and a super gallop out. You can see asked her to gallop out after the wire, and she has a very, very strong gallop out all the way around the turn. We'll move to the Derby next, and for the Derby I had East Avenue, sharp work in 49-4, very much in hand until he was asked in maybe the final 16th, and a really good gallop out. Again, super work for this horse. I really like the way he looked. American Promise, number 4. I loved this work and saw him out here again this morning looking fabulous. But this is a horse that just in the breeze, a sharp breeze in 59-2, but got better the further he went. His stride gets bigger the further he goes. Number 3, Rodriguez. I've been loving this horse galloping. He galloped in his work. His ears were flicking around the turn. He seemed very relaxed. He's very professional. Nice maintenance work in a minute. And then number 2, Journalism. Another horse, he's the favorite. He's just not giving us any reason to look away from him. He's very, very fluid. He worked off the rail, and pricks his ears into the stretch. Very professional. and just sort of an effortless work. And then, of course, no surprise, I know Joe's been catching on to my favorite work from the Derby horses is Sovereignty. He tugs his rider to the pole and then settles in behind the workmate, but just galloping into the lane here and goes much, super strong past the wire. I did talk to Bill Mott, who said he was specifically not looking for a lot of gallop out. And you can see this horse just he's just in a gallop. I mean, he's just easily moving along here. I love the way he strides out. And then you can see the rider's actually giving a tug after the wire, and the horse very, very willing to go on. We'll see what Caitlin thinks from the backside of her top 5 picks.
Well, thank you, Rosie. These were some deep races underneath the 2 favorites, I thought. Let's go ahead and take a look at my picks for this year's Kentucky Oaks. And this is a race that I think you can go a lot of different directions. I have 2 30-to-1 shots in my top 5. Tenma is going to be number 5 for me for Bob Baffert. It's Bob Baffert. She took a little bit of a step back in her most recent race, but she was still a winner. Anything she did this weekend coming up on Friday would not surprise me. Fondly for Graham Motion is one that I've long been a fan of. She won the Virginia Oaks. She is unbeaten in 2 starts. She wouldn't be here if Graham didn't think she belonged. So she's going to be one that I'm definitely going to be using underneath. Quiet Side is the filly I really kind of had no idea what to do with this entire prep season. I respect her talent. I think she drew well from the outside. We've seen 2 recent winners from post number 14, so I definitely think she's one that's going to be coming into her best effort. Bless the Broken. It's between her and Good Cheer for my top spot in this race. I'm really going to elevate Bless the Broken and probably pick her on top if we do have an off track coming up on Friday, which there is a chance. So that's going to be a game time decision for me, but she is a horse that I have been impressed with for such a long time. I think she moves up over a wet track. Will Walden is very confident in that, but Good Cheer is the horse to beat. 6-5 is just really, really short. In a race like the Kentucky Oaks, I probably would have made her 8-5 on the morning line, but Mike Battaglia knows a lot more than I do. She very well may go off as 6-5. Somewhere around that 7-5, 8-5 range is kind of what I'm expecting, but she is a very heavy favorite. She's a deserving favorite. Perfect 6 for 6. Brad Cox has every reason to be confident in this year's Kentucky Oaks with Good Cheer. She hasn't turned a hair since she's gotten back to Churchill Downs. Let's take a look at the picks for the Kentucky Derby for me. Final Gambit for Brad Cox is going to be in 5th, and as you can see, got 2 30-to-1 shots in my top 5 here as well. I think he's a horse that's going to continue to take well over the dirt. He's going to get a great trip from post position number 3. Posts 6 through 1 are all speed horses aside from Final Gambit. He can drop back, save ground, tip wide onto the turn. That's his best running style. Chunk of Gold. I think this is this year's Wise Guy horse that can very much factor into the Superfecta. There's always a horse 20-to-1 or higher that's in the Superfecta. Happened to be Mystic Dan last year and he won the race. We'll see if Chunk of Gold can do that, but I am confident in his finishing style. Also confident in the way Sovereignty finished races. I am very, very sure this horse is going to be in the mix, especially when they turn for home. He's got a powerful late kick. I think he is the best of the closers. Luxor Cafe. Great chance coming in for Japan. He doesn't have as much fanfare as Forever Young did last year, but numbers and figures, he's kind of close to Forever Young. Forever Young's still a little bit better at this point in his career last year, but I don't think Luxor Cafe has to be as good as Forever Young was last year to beat this field. And of course, Journalism going to be on top for me. I can't really poke any holes in this horse at all, and the way I've talked to Mike McCarthy over the past week has just made me all the more confident in this horse. I'm confident he's going to be able to handle a 20-horse field. That's definitely been a little bit of a question mark for some people, but he's got that ability to stop and start that I've already talked about. I think that is so important in a race like the Kentucky Derby, and once that speed maybe starts to back up in this year's Derby with it looking to be a pretty speedy race, Journalism, I think, is going to be the one that gets the jump on the late closers. What about you guys?
All right, thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, Rosie. You see the designated training time wrapping up here at Churchill Downs. Again, Derby live racing with 3 stakes, 12 race card. A little bit later on, time has come for James Scully and I to reveal our selections for the Oaks and Derby. And James, you're up first with your Kentucky Oaks picks.
All right, let's take a look at it. Number 5, Quiet Side. I definitely respect her chances, but her 2 best races have come when she was forward, and I don't think she'll get that trip. Number 4, Bless the Broken is going to bring a big late kick in a speed-laden field. I liked her effort last time. She's got to keep improving, but I think she has a chance for Will Walden. I agree with Rosie about number 3, Ballerina D'Oro. I liked how she's trained. I thought she was a race short last time. Will be set for a career best for Chad Brown Saturday and will be running from off the pace in a speed-laden field. Number 2 is Tenma. This is a filly that is poised to improve upon her last. Her race 2 starts back in the Las Virginias was outstanding. For whatever reason, she came back flat from a 2-month layoff, but she'll improve off that Santa Anita Oaks win. And first and top of the list is number 1 is Good Cheer, who she'll get the setup she likes. She loves Churchill Downs. She's 3 for 3 over the track, a big allowance win, rags to riches, goldenrod. And I just think she's going to prove too good for the competition on Saturday. I think that she'll get the right setup. It's going to be a hot pace. And one thing about Luis Saez, our jockey, he said down at the fairgrounds, wait until you see what she does when I let her run. He's been saying he hadn't let her run yet. So I think she's set for a career best. Here comes the Derby top 5. I wish I could have gotten Burnham Square, East Avenue, and Final Gambit in there, but I'm going to start with Tistastic. I loved how he stepped forward in that Louisiana Derby win, think he can keep progressing. 4th is Citizen Bull. Now, the 2-year-old champ was flat last time, but I think he appears to be thriving at Churchill for Bob Baffert. He's going to show speed from the inside. Number 3, Journalism. The Kentucky Derby favorite is obviously formidable, but he has been a stretch closing type who hasn't made up a lot of ground on the far turn of his 3 stakes, and that's where the Derby's often won. So I'm going to use him underneath the favorite. And number 2 is Sovereignty, one of 3 horses that have a win over the track, and his victory in the Street Sense last fall couldn't have been any more impressive. He came back with 2 real good preps in the Fountain of Youth and Florida Derby. Those races will set him up for his best on Saturday. And Bill Mott, I think, couldn't be any more confident and bullish in Sovereignty. And first is Sandman. Sandman is a horse that I loved his late kick in the Arkansas Derby. I thought Jose Ortiz picking up the mount made all the difference. And, he's a horse that, to me, was just too green, too raw in those races. And obviously, he was a little bit in and out in the stretch of the Arkansas Derby. But you watch that final 16th, he's drawing away from Publisher at the wire. So I think he's set for his best Saturday for Mark Casse and Jose Ortiz. Joe, who do you have?
Always a lot of fun on this show. The build-up, the picks have changed. The top 10 list has changed so many times for me. Not so much for the Oaks, but the Derby, which we'll take a look at here in a moment. Simply joking, she's fast, she's game, she's got an inside draw. Will the pace scenario work in her favor? That remains to be seen, but I respect her. Well, there's been a lot of talk about the hoof issue that Take Charge Milady has. If Kenny McPeak runs her, she's a major player, and she'll offer better value than maybe she would have if that news didn't come out about that condition. A Good Cheer, I got the utmost respect for. 14-horse field, though. She breaks out of the starting gate a little bit slowly sometimes, has to try to work a trip. Mile and 8 should be her friend, but again, anybody could pick Good Cheer, and I could have very well easily have done so as well. I agree with James on Tenma. If we see the horse that we saw win the Las Virginias, she could win the Kentucky Oaks, and I don't think she was fully cranked up for the Santa Anita Oaks in her most recent start. If we see the best of Tenma, like the way she's trained, I think she could bounce back in a big way. And I love Quiet Side. I just do. I think she's going to be able to sit just off the early pace. I love the way she's trained at the Keeneland between starts. I love the way she's coming into the race from a progressive manner, leading up and through her preps. She threw it down with a very, very talented and game filly and Simply Joking last amount, and she wore her down in the stretch. And quite frankly, I think the value is going to be there. She's 8-1 in the morning line. She'll be the 3rd, maybe the 4th choice in the Kentucky Oaks. And I think we'll get upwards of 5 or 6-1 on her. Quiet Side is going to be my selection in Kentucky Oaks 151. Kentucky Derby, man, I could have put a lot of horses in the 5-4 spots. I'm pretty solid on my top 3. Went with Citizen Bull here because I got this feeling that he's going to be going from the rail, and yeah, we'll just leave it at that. There's just those visions of him going gate to wire, and I do think he's legitimate, and he's a little good in the mornings. Luxor Cafe, I can't get that visual of his most recent race out of my mind where he showed an unbelievable turn of foot, flying way under the radar. Luxor Cafe number 4. Tough to poke holes in the next two. Sovereignty and Journalism, they look the part. They have the resume. They've looked great, particularly lately for Sovereignty. Training, Journalism just checks every box. But again, it would be easy to pick the favorite. He's the one to beat, but the favorites haven't been winning recently. And obviously he's got to work a trip. Burnham Square for me. That's where I landed. This horse has really grown on me over the course of the last couple of weeks. Watching him train, talking to Ian Wilkes, glued to the rail here in a workout with Brian Hernandez Jr. aboard, who won the race last year. The pressure's completely off Brian. After winning it, he can just go out there and do his thing. Ian Wilkes said he can't get to the bottom of this horse. He will be finishing late. And again, this is a gambling game. He's 12-1 in the morning line. You're going to get every bit of that, I think, in the Kentucky Derby. And I think Burnham Square is going to run his race, and he's going to be finishing as well as anybody in the field. And I think maybe he's worth playing in the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge, James, because this is a tournament where, you know, it's going to make a difference in your bankroll if you happen to win it, because it costs quite a bit of money to get in. A lot of people have already qualified for it. There are a couple of more opportunities to qualify today and tomorrow leading up to the big tournament on Saturday. And again, it's the culmination of a lot of feeders, a lot of qualifiers. If you've got your spot already, that's great. If not, a couple more opportunities to do so. Otherwise, you got to buy in, and it's certainly worth it if you can get a couple of friends involved to help invest in you.
Absolutely, and this is the inaugural edition of the Betting Challenge. It's only going to grow in popularity. A great, great contest.
All right, Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge coming up on Saturday, the first annual, right there with the NHC and the BCBC as the top tournaments in the company. Fast, safe, easy to use. TwinSpires.com is the place to play. And for the final time, this Kentucky Derby and Oaks prep season, it's time to get the final thoughts from our panelists. We'll send it up to Rosie first.
Well, it's been an exciting day out here. We saw a lot of all the Derby horses. They just came one after another in their gallops today, and haven't really changed my mind about anybody that I've been having my eye on. Rodriguez looked fantastic this morning. Journalism, Sovereignty, those are my top three works, and they all looked fantastic. East Avenue looked really great today. Everybody looked great. I saw Luxor Cafe. I saw Sandman. I saw them all. They all look great. I think it's going to be a super fun Derby, and I'm so excited to be here on Saturday. Caitlin, what are your thoughts?
Great to be having another show with you, Rosie, and Joe and James. I'll see you in just a little while up on the set before we go ahead and start our Derby card. But we basically saw everyone out here this morning. I can't really say there was anything that leapt off at me, anything that really surprised me or kind of dissuaded me from anything that I would be picking in these races. Like I said, a lot of this is going to be weather depending on my handicapping, especially for the Kentucky Oaks to Kentucky Derby. I pretty much have my mind made up on Journalism. I think even with an off track, this horse is still going to thrive. Being by Curlin, and a horse that does well over an off track as well as Luxor Cafe. So I'm very solid in my top two for this year's Kentucky Derby. Kentucky Oaks as well just may flip-flop, bless the broken, and good cheer. But exciting races coming up the next few days, and it's been a pleasure. Once again on the Morning Work Show, Joe and James, going to go ahead and toss it to you for the final time.
All right, thanks, Rosie. Thanks, Caitlin. Pleasure to have both of you guys aboard for this journey up to the Oaks and Derby on the Work Show. James, your final thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be on the show for the last 4 days, get an opportunity to see these horses train. I agree with what Rosie was saying about there's just so many options in this field. I'm going. Three of us are going against Journalism for our top pick, but I don't think he'll be 3-1. I think he's going to be higher because other horses are taking money. So you're going to get the price if you like the favorite this year. And I just want to wish everybody the best of luck this weekend.
Yeah, just so proud of our team, Rosie, Caitlin, James on the show today, but Kevin Kilroy, Tony Kalo, Travis Stone sat in for me a few of the days and does a great job, obviously, calling the races here at Churchill. Rookie of the Year, Megan Burgess, not only plying her trade, as part of the show as a reporter on the backstretch, but also getting great sound after the show. And the MVP every year that helps us out, in so many different ways. Kevin Kirstein, want to thank
hardest working person in horse racing.
Yeah, he really is. Senior director and executive producer Keith Wetzler, the producer of this show, Michael Canali, and the entire crew. I mean, everything that goes into this show with all the early morning hours. Set my alarm one day for 2 2:30 in the morning, and the cameramen, the graphics people, everybody that works in the control room just does a fantastic job to bring you this show each and every morning, and it all comes down to people that are very passionate about horse racing. We thank all of you for watching from all over the world. Hopefully you've got your Derby horse. That's what this show is all about. For the final time, thanks to everybody who helped us out with the show. It's Thurby, first post at Churchill Downs. We'll be at 12:45. Enjoy the rest of the week, everybody.